Can you gain weight on a strict carnivore diet? I am living proof that you absolutely 100% can. All right, I mean, just like, look at these muscles. Hold on, let me just, oh, it's all that meat, baby. Okay, here, let me put my shirt back on. Okay, whew. Forgive my indulgence in my own physique, but when you've been as emaciated as I have, as you guys just saw in that video, you can't help but wanna strut your stuff a little bit when you finally get back on track and gain that strength, that robustness, and that I feel handsome again, you know? So anyways, so in this video, I wanna go over my own personal experience, how I was able to put on a little over 40 pounds in about 4 or 5 months eating a completely plant-free carnivore diet. And I also wanna troubleshoot what I think are some of the main reasons why you maybe having a little bit of difficulty putting on weight on a carnivore diet. All right, I see this in the comments sometimes. Rick Rodriguez, I see you, 40-year carnivore, check him out, absolute legend. Yeah, I see this come up a lot, and I was inspired to make this video because I feel like I am part of the minority in this concept. I feel like there's a black hole in the space on YouTube, right? If you look at all the videos, all the comments, what is the common theme you see everywhere? Everyone is losing weight, all right? And then here I was 6 months ago, I finally understand the efficacy of this diet. I think, wow, I'm gonna start eating like me as a species is meant to eat, right? But shit, everyone's cutting out carbs and losing weight. So does that mean in order to gain weight, you need to add in carbs? Like I was looking through the comments, and I mean, here, I can read you some. These are from my recent videos. So Jammer411 says, beef, butter, bacon, eggs saved my life. Lost 80 pounds in 6 months. Whew. Debbie Goad, she lost, what's that? 75 pounds. Eric Baxter, about 50 pounds, all right? Everyone is cutting out carbohydrates and losing weight. So here I am thinking, does this mean I need to add in, like, is carnivore not for someone who wants to gain weight? And I'm here to make a statement that across the board, this is not the case, all right? I am living proof you can put on healthy weight eating a strict carnivore diet if you so choose, all right? And when you break it down, it really becomes quite obvious. When you eat as a human is meant to eat, you will begin to look as a human is meant to look, right? Meaning that if you are overweight, you will lose. If you are underweight, you will gain, right? Our body is always trying to get back to its natural composition. We just need to give it what it's asking for, what nature is asking for in order for this to be facilitated. And the reason why the census is overwhelmingly in favor of weight loss is because the majority of people are overweight. We live in a world where we glorify obesity these days. This is a new cool trend to be incredibly unhealthy. And so naturally that's gonna be the case. But here I am representing the minority. You can do it, all right? So let me dive in a little bit more around my experience. And I've kind of already laid it out. Like, it's pretty much on the table. I put on 40 pounds in 4 or 5 months eating a bunch of beef. But to provide a little bit more context, I was about 110 pounds when I started. Now I'm a little over 150. I ate, like I said, probably 98, 99% of my calories came from beef in that time, just muscle meat and fat. Every day it felt like my birthday. It was the most satisfying meals I've had in my life, especially after a long time of eating plant-based. And I do want to point out, for the record, because I'm always kind of slating my plant-based past, I think it was one of the reasons my body degenerated so far, because not only was I really unwell, I was eating plants, which are, well, it's not a good combination, but I was not that emaciated purely due to plants. I had recently done a 22-day water fast, and I dropped down to about 100 pounds. And then subsequently, I brought myself back up to about 110, and that's when I started eating a carnivore diet. On my malnutritional plant-based style of eating, I was about 120. So, I was always kind of in that ballpark. But nonetheless, I put on the weight from 110 to 150, eating a bunch of beef. Other nuances that might be interesting were my macros and daily calories. And I know calories aren't the be all and end all, but as a metric, it's just kind of helpful for me to be able to explain this to you. They changed a lot. At first, I was eating 4,000 or 5,000 calories every day, and probably 90% came from fat. I would eat 3-4 pounds of beef in a day, and then literally go to the fridge and eat spoonfuls of lard. I wanted fat so bad, and now I eat like less than 2 pounds of meat a day, and probably more like 70-30, a lot less fat. And I put on a bunch of weight. So when it comes to that weight gain, and when I start talking about troubleshooting why you may not be gaining weight, there really only are two fundamental imperative components to weight gain. And they are as follows. 1, adequate nourishment. You got to eat enough food to give your body its nutritional requirements. Eat enough fat, eat enough protein. The other is use your body. The scientific terminology would be expand and contract your muscles in order to exert force over your skeletal mass to induce hypertrophy, which is the growth of your muscles, right? And that's what I did. I ate a bunch of meat, and I lived my life. And to be honest, a lot of that weight I gained purely just by living my life, because the everyday life I was living was enough of a stimulus that my muscles needed to grow. Just walking up and down the stairs, taking my dog on a walk. And then, I think in the last 10 pounds, it was quite crucial that I did a bit of resistance training. I was surfing, I was hitting the rings, getting my workouts in. But that's basically how I did it. I do want to point out that while the majority of the weight I put on was certainly lean muscle and bone mass, which is I think what the goal is for most people, I also put on a significant amount of body fat, right? If I bring up old videos, when I started eating this way, this is me, I don't know, a month in or so to eating a carnivore diet, still really emaciated. This is me a couple years ago, right? I look like death. And a lot of that, because there's not that much musculature in your face, there's your jaw, right? But for the most part, I had an incredibly low body fat percentage, which was affecting my cholesterol levels, my hormones, my testosterone, all of that stuff. And now all of that has beautifully balanced. But I do just want to point out that some of that weight gain was certainly fat. The rest was lean muscle and bone mass, all right? So let's really dive into, like I've said, and I'm sorry to be repetitive, there are two imperative components to gain weight. You got to eat enough food and pump some iron and work out, whether that's at the gym or through some other stimulus, okay? Right. And like I said before, I'm talking about a healthy weight gain. We can all just eat a bunch of donuts and become obese and say, yeah, I'm sexy because obesity is cool now. But I'm not talking about that, all right? So let's dive into this. It is black and white, but stick with me. I know it sounds really easy and just like stupidly easy, but there's one hang up that I'm gonna get to in a sec that I think is where many people fall under, all right? But first, let's address, say, undereating. Okay, it's simple. Are you undereating? There is a bit of cultural, social brainwashing, let's say. When some people start a carnivore diet, it does happen that people undereat because you're kind of trained to resist fully satiating your body on animal foods. But I think the easiest way to troubleshoot this is just, am I still hungry? Is eating more food pleasurable? If so, keep doing it. When it's no longer pleasurable at all, then you've met your nutritional requirement. Now, this leads me to, I think, the biggest point. Undertraining, right? And this is the misconception that I think hangs up a lot of people. there's this idea that if you're doing a particularly physical job, or you work out to some certain capacity, you are using your muscles to some varying degree, right? People have this idea that if you just eat a bunch of food, eat tons of food, that you're gonna put on more muscle mass, right? And this is not necessarily the case. This is the biggest misconception, because our bodies are innately intelligent, right? And they respond when we put our muscles against a particular stimulus that is big enough. This will induce the wear and tear of our muscles, which is hypertrophy. It allows them to grow bigger and stronger. However, if our body is already adapted to be strong enough to deal with that particular stimulus, then it doesn't matter how much we're gonna eat, our muscles aren't gonna get any bigger because we aren't triggering hypertrophy. Does that make sense? So like, I think, most people that favor a carnivore diet favor all aspects of humanity to be more natural, right? Women are becoming ideally more feminine and men more masculine. So speaking for myself, I like to do masculine things. I like to chop wood. I used to work at a lumber mill. I go surfing. I get on the rings. I like to do this stuff. And if you're doing this and you think, oh, I'll just eat a bunch more food and I'll put on weight, that's not necessarily the case. And let's use the gym for an example. Okay, if you're always lifting the same weights, the same reps, the same sets, the same weight, you're eventually going to plateau because your muscles will reach a point where they don't need to grow anymore to deal with the stimulus that you are exposing them to, which is why there's the term progressive overload. Once you become comfortable with these new weights and sets and reps, yada, yada, you must increase them in order to continually increase the stimulus and increase your body's response via hypertrophy, getting bigger and stronger, okay? Progressive overload, that's basically the gist of it, all right? If your body is already up to the task, it serves no purpose to adapt to be stronger because it's not required, all right? That's pretty much it. And I don't want to dive too much. This is becoming a video where I'm talking about training, and I'm not going to get into the nuances of strength and hypertrophy and endurance training and all that, but just know that you got to bust your ass if you want your muscles to get bigger and stronger. Otherwise, they're just going to stay as they are, which isn't a bad thing. Most Indigenous groups were actually quite lean. They were lean and strong, and I think that's perfectly fine. One other thing I want to note is that strength and size correlate, but are not necessarily linear in their definition. And for example, you can Google this, strength versus hypertrophy training. Sometimes these big, ginormous gym bros aren't able to do some of these basic lifts that kind of Olympic power lifters do, like the snatch or clean and press and stuff. So just keep that in mind. And yeah. The last nuance that I want to cover before I wrap up this video, something that I've said on many occasions is, if you are really sick, chronically ill and inflamed and having the worst time ever, and you switch to a more natural means of living, whether that is via grounding or a carnivore diet, trying to just get a better sleep, whatever, and you don't notice amazing benefits in the first month, I would say that's not because these things don't work. It's because you're so messed up, right? You can't expect 1 month of clean living to eradicate 3 decades of the abuse you've put your body through. So I think some people may use that excuse like, oh, I can't put on muscle because I'm just so unwell. But my experience has taught me different than that. Yes, being chronically ill will prevent your ability to eat enough food and work out really hard. Yes, it will absolutely do that, which will negate your ability to put on that healthy, lean muscle and bone mass. But it seems to just work like clockwork. And I know this because 3 years ago, my body was on the verge of collapse. I was in the worst health of my life. I just didn't quite know it yet. The straw hadn't broken the camel's back, which was my livelihood. And at that time, I was in some of the best shape of my life, at least outwardly I looked it, right? I'll bring up some videos. I was doing muscle ups and nearly handstand push-ups. Like I was pretty ripped. And yet I was sicker than ever. And to me, that just goes to show that as long as you hit those two requirements, it is black and white. You will put on weight and you will feel good about it. Anyways, that's the video. That is my take on weight gain and my own personal experience with it. All right. I apologize if I was a little bit repetitive, but I hope I got through to you. Anyways, go lift some heavy stuff.